Welcome back to the Imaginary Gallery. This is TJ, your host. Tonight's discussion is a little different than usual. It has to do with counter manipulation. It also ties in some consumer awareness lessons, as well as a personal true story. In this modern day and age with computers, with technology, there are a lot of options available to us that didn't used to exist. I don't think of myself as like a gullible person. Like I don't believe something just because someone says it. Well, obviously, if someone comes on the news and says something, I'll wonder, what's the real agenda here? I've utilized the modern technology to my advantage. For example, in the olden days, if I'd be in my place alone and the phone rang, I would pick it up, of course, before the days of caller ID. And even if you had caller ID and it said unavailable, I'd have a choice to answer or not. But when I get strange phone numbers calling throughout the day, and I don't know who it is, before answering, I'll be Googling the phone number, and sometimes nothing comes up. Sometimes I want you to pay to find out who it is. Those tools weren't available in the olden days. Plus, I'm aware of scams that go on nowadays. Like, we've all heard the one where you get the email that says that you need to be the next of kin for this stranger. All you have to do is do this and those types of things. My own father almost fell victim to one of these scams, which both my sister and I heard him talk about it, and we were like, no, do not do it. It was one of those where they claim that you're going to get a large amount of money, but let's just make up a number. You are entitled to $5,000 free just because of whatever invention is given. Oh, but there is a processing fee. For us to transfer to you, you must pay $200 first, and then we'll send you the $5,000. That's strategically designed because non-aware person might think, wow, well, sure, $5,000, sure, I'll give away $200. Here's my checking account number, take it. And of course, then the $5,000 never arrives, and the person's long gone. Scam. I heard his father talking about that kind of stuff, and do not do it, because honestly, if you were being given $5,000, the sensible thing to do would be to have them deduct that $200 out of it and give you the $5,000 minus the $200 free. But no, it's a scam. And I've learned to think everything's a scam pretty much. Chemtrails in the air, GMO, nanobot, everything we hear is just nothing like it used to be. But that's not what this video is about. Next is a true story, which ties into this. One evening, I was editing a video on my computer system. I got some strange little pop-up box that said something strange like
rtcache stopped working.
And it gave an option to click OK, and it gave an option to minimize. So I tried to get rid of it, minimized it, and then it popped up again. I think, what is this? Repeatedly, and it became an annoyance. So I figured it was probably some kind of crappy malware, virus, whatever, that psychopathic people in this world unleash on unknowing strangers. But I just kept seeing it and trying to get rid of it. I would just minimize it, but I knew it was there. And I knew it's probably something that got picked up somewhere that needs to be gotten rid of. But I just kind of ignored it. Well, then eventually it progressed. I got a different pop-up. I tried to use my computer savvy knowledge and figured I'd go into the processes, I'd locate the one with that name on it, and I would simply end process or delete. Well, guess what? Everything on the list had that option, but when I clicked on this particular thing, it took me to a website that said some kind of Apache nonsense crap. I figured, oh, that's not going to work. Well, I used my normal tactics of searching for things that are strange, like caller ID numbers. Well, in this case, I went to a Google search and I typed in the name of the error and all it was saying, with the word scam, because I figured it was. I didn't find too much right off the bat, but I went ahead and went about my business for the day. I was on a lunch break and noticed a new thing. It kind of, like, as I said, progressed. It was like first this one thing happened, which didn't seem right but indicated something was wrong. Then a window popped up, had the very brand name of the antivirus company that I use, and I saw the name on there, and it said, call us at this number, there's a problem or something. At first I think, yeah, right, that's a scam. When I saw the name of the antivirus that I have, I figured, well, this must be legitimate. That's what I have. How would any scammer know? I decided I'd go ahead and call the number and just see what the deal is. I knew about scams, but because this one had the very name of my antivirus software, I figured maybe it's some new threat. Something so serious you've got to call somebody. So I picked up the phone, dialed the number, and heard the Indian voice on the other end, which we'll learn later is very common. And it was like right before my lunch break was over, and I had a hard start meeting right when I came back from lunch break. So I figured I'll just make this call really quick and see what the deal is. Went ahead and called, and the lady asked me to click here and click there and read this to her and read that to her, which I did. And at this point figured, wow, this company's pretty good. They know how to take care of their people is what I was thinking. She said, look in this box. What do you see there? And I said, oh, it's blank. Oh, you have a problem with malware. Oh, don't worry, we can fix it. And I thought, oh, good. Oh, I've had stuff before in the olden days where the computer messes up for weeks and months. And the problem was, though, my meeting was starting in like 5 minutes. I figured this would be a quick call. And so I said, she's like, oh, it'll probably take about 45 minutes to an hour to correct the problem. And it's like, I'm going to have to do this later then. I've got a meeting right now. She's like, oh, when do you have meeting? And I told her, and a normal person would say, oh, okay, we'll deal with this later. But she was acting like I was on her phone. She was not going to lose this call. She said something like, oh, actually, all it takes is about 2 minutes, and then you can wait for the 45 minutes or something like that. And I thought, look. So I went ahead and was reaching over to the phone, dialing into the conference line for the meeting I was supposed to be attending. And because I had her on this phone, I put the other one on speaker. Well, you could hear the voice, please enter your passcode and all that stuff. Well, she must have heard that noise because she's like, what is that in the background? Is that your television? And I thought, what do you care what's in the background? Well, see, I didn't realize I was talking to a scammer. But I just said, well, that's my, because it was taking more than the time she said. It was just pushy. I went ahead and logged in there, and I said, no, it's my meeting. She took my number down and said she would call back in an hour. And at this point, I still didn't know anything was wrong. I just figured, okay, in an hour I'll take care of this mess. I mean, the web pages worked. They were not working smoothly, and that thing kept popping up, so I figured it must not be too big of a deal. I ended up thinking about this, and I even, on my next break, I typed in a search engine, picked keywords, pop-up scam, and oh my goodness, there were hits everywhere for pop-up scams. So I investigated just a little further. I was shocked to read that the very steps this lady gave to me were the ones listed in these scams, which typically involve you calling, oh, I got this pop-up, and they say, oh, when did you get it? And they ask their questions, and then they say, click here, click there. And then what they want to do is what she did. Go and hold down the Windows button, and when it pops up with an R, type in this, and she was giving me the name of a server system that would allow her to have control over my system, which is something I'm used to anyway with sharing screens, but that's usually internally, and this was a stranger in India. I went ahead and went through with it, but then when we got to that point and it was meeting time, I had just said, well, I'm going to have to do this later. Well, I since have learned that these exact steps are the ones that these scamming people do. And typically I read that it's some other kind of message, though. It wasn't your own antivirus software. It was some other thing like, warning, and I've gotten those before where you hear this, and this thing pops up. It's the most annoying thing. It's like, there is nothing wrong with it. Get rid of it. I hadn't seen that. It was something different. But then, lo and behold, as I said, it was progressive. Like the next day, there was one of those that said, warning, do not close this window. You might be infected with a Trojan, this or that. And I had watched a few videos and noticed that this is a pretty big deal. There are scams going on everywhere. I thought about my own situation, how I don't find myself to be gullible, yet at this point I really believed this was real and I was prepared to call. What I learned was they ask you to connect to the server that allows them control, and then they look through your system, and from what I learned later, they pull up normal files that every computer has. They disguise those files as, oh, see that right there? You have a virus.
Someone is in your system, and they use fear tactics. They try to scare you. They say, oh, you have malware. oh, if you have any banking information, it is at risk.
You hear about how dangerous computers can be, so it could be natural for you to go ahead and think, oh, well, really? Oh, no, and really believe it. I thought, this sounds awfully familiar. I didn't get far enough in the call, though, for her to say there was going to be a charge. And that's what I learned later, is that they say, oh, we're going to connect you directly to Microsoft, and because it's a technician, they are going to charge. And then I read and heard and watched that they have different prices, and they ask you questions. And I think I recall the lady I was talking to, even before she even saw my screen, was stating by what I told her I saw on the screen, oh, you have a problem with your network. So I also learned these people will tell you things like, there's a problem with your network, so even if you get a new computer, you're still going to have it. So they're like trying to terrify you. They're trying to put fear in you that your system is ruined, and that if you do not speak with them and do what they want, you won't have your computer. And I'm just glad I didn't call her back or answer her call when she called back, because I didn't have to go down these roads. The prices are like $199.99 for 1 year of protection, or it would be $500 or something for 5 years. They're different ones. The point of it is, it's scam. It's not real. And the pop-ups have been looked at by computer experts, which indicate that they're just some flimsy made thing. And that brings us into the next part of this, which is the counter-manipulation part. It became clear that these people all are doing the same things. They're being deceptive, they're scaring you, making you think that you've got this horrible problem you don't have, and then they're going to tell you that the only way to solve it is right now with them, which means you can pull out your trusted credit card and you can pay them for them to fix it for you. To a regular person, that sounds like a great idea. Now, the more that I watched and read and researched, the more I saw that I was being pulled into the scam, and thought of how vulnerable I would have been, and what if I would have given that amount of money, which I probably wouldn't have. And then I heard what they do on top of all this. If they keep you on the phone for several minutes and have you do this and do that, well, then eventually they want you to pay. And if you say you can't pay, once you give them control of your system so they can fix it, they can do this thing with this key, which means they give it a special encrypted password that only they know, which means you're locked out of your own computer, which sounds pretty cruel considering the fact that they're scamming you to begin with, and if you don't give them what they want, they're going to punish you further. Now, what does that sound a lot like? Cluster B, psychopathic, sociopathic, narcopathic monsters. It's the very same technique they use, and that's why I brought this up in this video. It's like a textbook example of the same disorder in a different setting. The more I listened and learned, I also thought of the counter manipulation we've talked about before. You know how when you are going about your own business, just like, let's use the parallel, they will use something called a syskey, S-Y-S-K-E-Y. I was going about my own business, trying to edit my own video that I had created, and this pop-up came up, and it wasn't something I wanted, and I tried to get rid of it, and then another one came up, and then I got the other call. So here I was minding my own business, and this intruding web thing popped up and told me there was a problem. It started the whole issue, just like in your life. You're minding your own business, and some creature who knows it's not compatible with you, but wants something you have, so pretends to be, and scams you, just like these computer people are like, oh, your computer's got a problem, let me help you with it. It's the same principle. I took it a step further and noticed on YouTube several videos of people who were already onto this scam. And if you want to look it up, I strongly recommend, because it deals with counter manipulation, and it also reinforces the fact that we, the innocent computer users, didn't do anything to anybody. We just got that information and reacted to it, and then we were attempted to be pulled down some labyrinth of scam. So we're like the target. We are the victim, if you want to use that word here. Well, I learned that certain computer-savvy people have what's called a virtual machine, and they were taken as a step further, saying that they knew these things were scams, and that they were actually scamming the scammer. What is that? Counter manipulation. So let's compare again. These aren't people that decided, I'm going to call some company and scam them. No, that would be the scammers. These are people that are minding their own business and finding themselves being lured into a scam. Many people do not like that. If they find someone's doing that, they will react. and many times they'll react better than the actual scammer itself. And that is where they become more interesting, because I looked at several videos where we got to learn a whole new language. These people are all in India, all the Indian accent. The people had asked them, like, where are you calling me from, or where am I calling? And they just ignore it. Okay, sir, go ahead and click this and click that. You didn't answer my question. Where are you at? And they just ignore it. And I got kicks out of lots of these because I've worked in the call center and I've worked with people in other places before. You pick up on certain things with their dialect, like in this case, which I found hilarious. They don't know how to use the letter V, like Victor. They think it's a W. Person who was doing the video, who was aware of the scam, I would hear the actual, and was basically saying to the YouTube people, hey, I got this scam, and they're computer experts, and they have a virtual machine that can't be messed with by a third party. So they pretend to be just a dumb computer owner who doesn't know what's going on. They're calling this, I got this pop-up, and knowing exactly what it is, and going through with it, and then being deliberately annoying, such as misunderstanding something or typing something wrong repeatedly, keeping these fools on the line as long as possible, knowing that they are scam artists, even adopting their language. Oh, I'm going to use a Visa card. My Visa card is, the antivirus? Oh, the antivirus software, and things like that, with the V being a W. Do you have Windows Vista? Yes, I have Windows Vista. The person doing the video would be like speaking that language, and that is something I've done before, and I just really tuned right into that, thinking, you're not only scamming them back, you're using their language, and they don't even know it. And I'd hear them, they call it a desktop. Your desktop? And they'd be like, yes, your desktop. So I would watch a few videos after videos of people posing as stupid Americans who got a pop-up, and then they end up turning the tables around on these scammers. Throughout these conversations, these scamming people in India would be like very professional. Oh, sir, let me do this. What was the most shocking part of it was, one of them in particular, I noticed, when they pull up the form for you to pay, they said, type in your email address, and 500 for 5 years, I'll take the 500, and like all that stuff, which would be a scammer's dream come true, to think, wow, I'm getting the larger money, and then eventually getting to the point at the end where for 1 year or 100, saying, oh, well, I want to get that fixed. What are the choices? One person typed in, this is a scam. After going through like 30 minutes worth of all the talk, their voices changed. Like, what is this? What are you doing to me? This says here that this is a scam. You think this is a scam? I am Microsoft. What do you mean this is a scam? And of course he's not Microsoft. But the boy was like, no, that's my email. My email is, this is a scam at hotmail.com. And it's just like, oh, counter manipulation. And these people would sometimes say, you playing games with me? And then it got to the escalation point where on many examples I listened to, I heard these supposedly professional Microsoft employees start using sickening profanity, which I won't repeat here. I can sanitize it for you. It would be like the man's just talking like normal, and then it's like, I'm going to blank your sister. I'm going to blank your mother. I'm going to do this to you. You're going to do this, my blank. And all these things that are like really graphic, and I thought, where do these people learn this, and what kind of call center has that kind of dialogue? And it was just all kind of funny, and I'm just glad because I ran my own antivirus software, my own antivirus software, and it seems to have eliminated the problem. But the important part of this discussion is consumer awareness for you if you encounter these things. This scam is probably very effective on older people who really aren't computer savvy at all and just have a computer and they get some kind of message or pop-up and they believe it. It's just scam artists are everywhere. The sick part here is that it's not even like personal. It's not like you took somebody's parking space so they decided to scam you. It's just you're a random target for this scammer and you haven't even done anything to them. Well, that reminds us of the cluster B, where you met the creature who had all these plans for you and all these scams for you. You might have even been skeptical, and they lured you in anyway and assured you there was no scam. And what happened? Scam! So it's very similar, and I guess my experience with cluster B has helped with most detection of such things. But in this case, I was a little gullible, but luckily I was saved by the bell. So if you get such things, beware and do not fall for it. It's usually a lie.
I am the narcopath, and you're not.
People sometimes ask me how I got to be the way that I am. I just think back to grade school, and back to high school. I think that's where I learned my craft. I learned that other kids tell lies and feel guilty for it. I tell lies and I feel pleasure. So I learned how to tell the best lies ever. I learned how to turn one person against another to get what I wanted, and I just carried it on into my adult life. It's really fun, lucrative career. I've gotten all kinds of things that I want. I knew that some of the kids at the recess playground didn't like a particular teacher that I, at the age of 10, was sleeping with. I knew he had a crush on one of them, too. I knew they used to date. He wouldn't admit it, but I know how my lies are, and it sounded just like his, so I just accepted it. I happened to join their little gathering. They knew that I hung around you for projects, and I just went out there and made up an insult. I said, "Oh, that teacher, he is so horrible, I can't stand him." That was the bait, and guess what? His little ex-tart heard me say that, had no clue what was going on, and that prompted her to say, "Oh, I think he is the biggest jerk in the world." Well, I continued the conversation and scurried back in to his direct office, and I told him, "Your little sweetheart said you were the most horrible man in the world. What do you think of that?" And it wasn't long before he ignored you. And he was all mine, until of course the next teacher came in. It was hotter. I don't have that long of a attention span. If something hotter comes along, I find a way to get it. Obviously you know that. Because I am the psychopath. And you're not. Get used to it.
I want to join the royal family of Monaco. I look just as feminine as all those chicks do.
I look just as feminine as all those chicks do.
Oh.